All right, now let's go back to that data from the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria showing a slight uptick in business confidence there for manufacturers. That's for 2024 Q4. Joining us to unpack this, we have Mr. Segun Ajayi-Kede, the Director General, Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. Great to have you on the show. Good morning.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Yes, last time I saw you, I think that was 2024. Happy New Year. I guess, at this time. So we're seeing an uptick in manufacturers' confidence index, and that's Q4 2024. That's where we have all the dirty December. That's where we have festivity spending. So I guess this was expected.
Yes, certainly. You are very right. What has happened is that there's usually an upsurge in consumer purchases around that time because it's a festive period, and probably a lot of people will have made savings. It's time to maybe visit the village, make some purchases, have families and friends around. And so it naturally reflected on the perception of manufacturers and the expectations that, yes, we are going to make higher sales, and it did happen, though marginally. That's why you notice that the confidence of manufacturers were boosted by the 0.5% that we saw. Even though in previous years, when we didn't have this kind of macroeconomic environment, we did have higher upticks in terms of MCCI during this period.
And, looking at, let's compare now to other, festive seasons. How does this one, the fourth quarter of 2024, how does that compare to, say, 2023, fourth quarter, and the previous one?
No, I mean, it was marginal. Even though there was a Naira squeeze at some point, we did notice, I think, more than 2 percentage points in terms of the increase that we've had. And we actually saw this uptick, little as it is, as a surprise because our warehouses are still full. So what this means is that there was just a depletion in it, and also that manufacturers felt that, okay, we are entering a period where we are having more purchases. We are having a period where expectations that government will improve on the stability, relative stability that we've had. So I think that was what was responsible for the marginal increase. But compared to what we've had before, I mean, this is low when you consider the increase in activities during the festive periods.
And, despite the uptick in confidence, some indicators remained below that 50-point, threshold, which, signifies contraction. What were the primary challenges affecting them?
Okay, so I think we continue to have a persistent increase in the interest rate. I mean, that's very, very significant for us. And electricity costs remained high. There are even talks that it may go much higher. Insecurity, though it has abated in some ways, but still remains a major challenge affecting logistics. We've also had the fact that the expectations of manufacturers that the tax bills before the National Assembly will be speedily passed because of the positive impact it will have on business. That didn't happen towards the end of last year. And we continued to borrow at rates that are quite unsustainable. I mean, inflation also remained high. So all of those have not left us in any way better than the previous quarters in the year. So like we said, you can only just attribute this uptick to the festive period. During the Yuletide, you naturally expect economic activities to be on the high. So, but all those macroeconomic factors that have constituted binding constraints to the growth of the manufacturing sector persisted.
Right, and you did mention interest rates there, and we're having the first rate-setting meeting for 2025. That's starting tomorrow. We should get a decision on Thursday. We're also expecting inflation numbers. That should be out at, at some point, and definitely that's going to shape the next decision. That's rate-setting meeting in Nigeria. If you look at the global scene, we've seen the U.S., they are shifting stance, from the rate cuts we had, in 2024. Now we're seeing pauses in the U.S., and who knows, maybe a hike might come soon with the way it's going. So what do you want to see at the first rate-setting meeting in Nigeria? Do you want to see a hold, or you don't mind another hike?
No, certainly not another hike. I mean, we are looking forward to a pause, if not a deceleration. We should pause it at this moment, because we have indicated in the past that we needed to do an impact assessment on productivity with the hike. I understand the economics, that you need to continue to move upwards the interest rate for you to curb inflation. But we have done this for, I think, more than 24 months now, and we have seen that it has not kept inflation down. And we know that it is food inflation that is driving this, and principally responsible is also insecurity and post-harvest losses and so on. But we know that you need a rethink. You need to do an impact assessment for you to know how you should manage it. And I think most experts have seen that a pause on the increase is what is needed at this time, and that's the expectation, so that we'll be able to incentivize productivity. There's no doubt that it is only when when your production cost goes lower that you'll be able to sell at prices that will be more affordable and that will not spoil inflation. So I believe that there has to be a rethink. We do not expect any hike, and we expect that the federal government will take adequate steps to achieve its 15% inflation target for the year. I mean, the way to do it is not to continue to do what we have been doing that has not helped majorly.
So how would you describe hiring in the fourth quarter of 2024? Were manufacturers, were they keen on expanding their labor force?
No, not at all. I mean, like we said, the manufacturing is actually not the business of making products, but is selling it. Because it gets to a stage where what you have produced becomes a burden to you. You now need to hire warehouses to keep them. And you need now to even sell sometimes below the cost of production, so that you do not lose it to expiry. So what we are having is a situation where we are cutting back on the number of shifts that will run. Most manufacturers now run just between 8 o'clock and 3 o'clock. You don't see them running 3 shifts any longer, because it's not possible for you to even sell adequately what you have produced. So I think that hiring is not looking up in any way. And I believe that the ambition of Mr. President to employ more than 2.5, to ensure that 2.5 million jobs are created, has to address these binding constraints that we have mentioned, that is limiting hiring, particularly in the manufacturing sector. There's no doubt that apart from government, manufacturing remains the biggest employer of labor. And I believe that a lot of efforts should be made to remove those constraints that have limited the capacity of the sector to deliver on jobs.
Right, and talking about manufacturers' confidence, we also have to take into consideration consumer confidence. We're looking at a battered consumer with hikes all over the place at this point. So are you confident consumers might gather some kind of confidence in 2025? And what kind of sacrifices do you think manufacturers can still make for the average consumer this year?
So I think the economic factors has even forced us to make sacrifice, because we are competing not only amongst ourselves, but with imported products. And you also know how the influx of products from low-cost environments have competed with us unfairly in the marketplace. Not to mention the issue of smuggling and counterfeiting that we've not been able to deal with effectively. So manufacturers are already existing on very low margins. And so what is required is for us to ensure that we take measures to improve the purchasing power of the average Nigerian. I was saddened when I heard, I think it was over the weekend, that some states are even yet to pay the minimum wage. I mean, this is sad. I believe that we should be able to put money in the hands of Nigerians so that they will be able to buy. A situation where states are still paying 30,000 and have not effectively signed on to the 70,000 minimum wage, which, by the way, is obviously inadequate. I mean, cause for a lot of concern. So I believe that manufacturers are reasonable. They are even forced to be reasonable because we already have more than 1.5, is somewhere between 1.5 and 1.7 trillion naira of unsold inventory across the country. So I wonder what kind of sacrifice we need to make beyond that.
Right. I do hope for a win-win, situation with the manufacturers and consumers in 2025. But, now we have the index for the fourth quarter of 2024. What are you seeing for the first quarter of 2025? Do you think that confidence will somehow, seep into the first quarter?
No, I think manufacturers, we've actually had that conversation, and I think this is a very nice question because we took to them the joyful news, hopefully, that, look, there's an uptick in your confidence. What are you looking at? No, they said they are not keeping themselves, that they know that it's going to be very, very difficult for you to be able to have a sustained improvement because the euphoria of the festive period is gone, and so you cannot expect a reenactment. But there are certain steps that could be taken, and I believe for us to be able to sustain this. If you have this pause that we mentioned about the interest, the hike in interest, if we do not have the increase in electricity, which will be very, very unpalatable, it should be unexpected, and I think government should not even allow that to happen in the first instance because those that are on band A are not getting the services that they are paying for, and we are having even collapse of the national grid now. So the investment in infrastructure is not there. I think we need to start talking of service reflective tariff, not just cost reflective tariff, because we need to interrogate the content of the cost. Then we should also have a situation where the federal government deliberately brings down the rate at which manufacturers borrow. We also need to ensure that the tax bill that is before the National Assembly is speedily passed so that we can have some relief, we can have some justice in the tax system. I mean, so that we do not continue to operate the way we have operated. I believe if we do some of these things, and of course, we don't in any way bring back the 4% that of FOB levy that the customs is thinking about, and the 15% increase in port charges by NPA. All of these complicate the system and they limit the capacity of the sector to perform. So we should make sure that we do all of this, and then we can expect that we can continue to sustain the confidence of manufacturers in the first quarter of 2025.
Right. I like that. Service reflective tariff, not just cost reflective. Thank you so much. That's a good way to anchor it there, Mr. Segun Ajayi, as the Director General, Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we'll take a break now. When we come back, inflation expectations, that's for January, and what's playing out in the commodities market. That's in a moment. Just stay with us.